Hi guys, Ashley here. Today I'm bringing you Ella Kidron, who is the International Corporate Affairs of JD.com guru. Ella, it's phenomenal to have you with us.
Ashley, it's so great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
You are in Beijing, in your headquarters right now, and I love seeing that mask right there. Thank you so much for doing this. How is everything,
Pleasure.
first of all, in Beijing?
Yeah, so I think, in the last little bit, Beijing has been kind of returning what I'm calling a new normal. So as you can see, I have my mask on. When I'm commuting to work, I do wear rubber gloves. So I do think that, in terms of Beijing, I think we're settling into what I would consider more of like a new normal than to say that things are completely normal. But it's really remarkable. You can see the parks are open now, which is really lovely. People are getting outside, which is great.
And you feel that people are feeling better in general, the sentiment, because it depends on how people feel as well inside. Basically, is it just that they want to get out of their homes and go buy something or see something? Or do you feel that people are also feeling safer and better right now at this moment?
Yeah, I think that, what you're seeing is that people are kind of more willing to come out together and socialize. There's a little bit more camaraderie. I think there was a period of time where, it's natural. There's fear and, there's really kind of a very obvious distance between people. But when I was at an outdoor shopping mall earlier, I guess it was Monday. So Monday was a holiday here. And when I was there, saw people kind of sharing ice cream and sitting there, of course, wearing masks and things, but definitely outside and kind of families getting out together, which is, completely different than earlier when I talked to some people, especially people who were picking up deliveries, JD and others, where they said, it was the only time they go outside was to pick up their delivery. There was one woman who literally said, I go outside twice a week and it's to pick up my kuaidi. I don't pick up anything else. And so I think that's shifted, which has been great to see.
That's beautiful. And what has JD done during this whole COVID-19? We know that a lot of Chinese tech companies stepped up and supported people, supported businesses, supported the whole community. So I know that JD has done a lot. So run us through all these beautiful initiatives. What was done and what is the impact?
Okay. Wow. Run it through all. I think I'll start at the beginning, which I think, the company made a really important decision. Every year for the last 8 years, what we've been doing is delivering through the Spring Festival. And so for people who might not know or are less familiar on your show, the Spring Festival is the time where everything shuts down in China, restaurants, companies, everything. But JD still delivers through the period. And it's important for us to be able to make sure that people can get what they need. And this year was no exception. And so I think that, the most important decision was to continue to deliver throughout the period. And then early on, in terms of logistics, the company started opening up a special channel to get products to Wuhan. So, from the emergency relief side, there was that. At the same time, looking at how, how we can get products to people throughout the country who need, daily necessities, who maybe not can't go to the grocery store or it's not convenient for them. So I think it was kind of twofold. And I think that, in terms of JD from the consumer side, really there were two things that the company did that I thought were pretty interesting. And the first one is looking at, first of all, sourcing products from around where customers are. So a lot of, what's really important right now is to be able to control the supply chain. And so, for example, we set up what was called the National Fresh Produce Channel. And the idea of that was that there's local produce that normally might have been sold in their local areas and actually bring that produce on for sale on JD.com. So that's
also just for locals, or anybody on JD could access it?
For anybody. So
okay.
For example, say I'm a farmer and maybe, I don't know, Sanya province, and I sell mangoes. Maybe I usually would just sell to people who live in Sanya. But due to the coronavirus, maybe the stores and things are closed. And so what we do is we actually open up the channel so that here sitting in Beijing, I can also get those mangoes from Sanya. So it solves two problems. It solves one problem of avoiding Beijing running out of produce of all sorts. as well as providing a local channel or an e-commerce channel for local sellers, local farmers, things like that. Another thing that the company did is the demand for e-commerce shot up during this period. In this month of February, actually, sales of fresh fruit on JD increased 260%.
Crazy.
So, just people really turn to e-commerce for their survival needs. And what that meant is that, there's a lot of demand for delivery. And at the same time, restaurants were closed for a period of time. Restaurants are opening now, but restaurants were closed for a period of time where there were restrictions on how many people could be in them. And so 2 things that we did, one of them was to offer temporary jobs for 7 Fresh, which is our offline supermarket. And then the other was we partnered with one of our equity investees called Dada Group to offer, I believe it was 35,000 temporary and full-time positions. So that might be warehouse workers, pickers, couriers, drivers. So basically looking at how to help the impacted offline market really fill that demand for e-commerce.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love it because there are so many e-commerce companies in China that also stepped up during this period. But I think what really sets JD apart, and we were just speaking about it with our China Watchers group recently, is that JD came out of it probably as the big winner because you guys were really able to handle that supply chain and logistics in-house. And you have everything controlled and set up in-house, when a lot of other businesses really understood that, okay, we really need to get this under control, because when the deliveries are not going out, obviously there's a lot of problems. So even during the peak disruption to supply chains and delivery, I believe that JD has done quite a good job. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that I think that, in terms of the advantage of having our own supply chain, it definitely came through during this period. I think that, one example is that, and I just learned this from our supply chain team a couple of weeks ago and was fascinated, but basically, we basically modeled the predicted development of the epidemic, and we're changing the supply chain in real time based on that.
Wow.
So, what's quite interesting is that masks, for example, would traditionally be a quite low demand product. Same with things like disinfectant. But all of a sudden demand spikes and it's everywhere. And so what our team was actually able to do, which I thought was pretty cool, is take the demand across the country and make sure that the supply in all the areas was kind of allocated properly, so that, for example, I couldn't have 2,000 masks piling up in my house because everyone's not going outside, right? But if I have 2,000 masks piling up in my house and then someone in another province can't access them, that would be problematic. So actually allocating the inventory in areas so that, for example, in Wuhan, for example, there might be more available masks than perhaps another area, just based on demand.
No, very smart, very smart. I love how data is integrated and all that. What shifts do you see when it comes to consumer behavior and preferences on the platform post COVID-19, during COVID-19? And do you think that these changes are short-term spikes, or are they here to stay?
Yeah, so I think that in terms of some of the changes that we've seen, in the beginning, so actually the demand has quite kind of shifted a little bit as the virus has developed. So, for example, with things like gyms being closed quite early on, home exercise equipment became very, very popular early on. But now things like outdoor sporting goods are starting to become popular. So kind of seeing how people's life adjustments have actually kind of been impacted as the virus has developed. Another example that I thought was pretty interesting is baking goods and cooking goods just kind of flew out the door during the
everybody's baking, everybody's cooking.
I mean, lots of live streams of everyone kind of becoming professional chefs, which I think is quite fascinating. And now one thing that we're seeing is that electric lunch boxes are highly popular. So I think that's a really good example of what we're calling the new normal, right? So these electric lunch boxes are basically You have a normal lunchbox, you plug it in and heat it up yourself. And what it means is that you don't have to use a communal microwave. So I think what it shows is, you know, embracing going back to work, but still taking a degree of caution towards, you know, where we are. And I think it's the reality.
And do you feel that these are there to stay, or are they going to be gone, those preferences and that desire to do outdoor sports and aspire to be, you know, a professional baker? Do you think these are going to disappear a quarter from now, or perhaps some of those changes are long term?
I think some of the things that are longer term are how everything has gone online through live stream. So for example, JD has set up a online clubbing activity for
I love
for
it. Tell us
nights.
about it.
Oh, sorry, it's Friday nights. I think it starts at around 8 p.m. and there's a DJ. And basically during the period of the clubbing, we also sell liquor. So it helps the brands boost liquor sales since clubs are closed for the most part. They might be opening up now, but at least for a period they were completely closed. So it helps with that. And then at the same time, you know, provides entertainment. Another example is working with museums to do kind of museum tours. I think that some of the aspects of online education will remain. You know, I don't think it's going to replace the classroom, but I think being able to have that kind of supplemental education might remain in the future. So I think that things going online, in terms of activities going online, I feel like some of that is going to be here to stay. For example, the clubbing, which originally was kind of thought to do kind of at the height of the coronavirus, is actually has been scheduled for sessions through May. So I think we're kind of seeing it as a long-term trend, or at least hoping that it will be.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And are all these a part of China's new normal? And if so, what in your view is this new normal going to really look like?
I think everyone's guess is as good as mine, to be quite honest. I mean, just looking at how everything's kind of developed outside of China, I don't necessarily think that we're going to be over this tomorrow. So I think that I kind of look at the new normal as a little bit of a holding pattern while people are moving forward. And, you know, I think in terms of everyday life, I mean, I think the first thing here is that people really did get back to work. That was kind of the priority. But I think, you know, some kind of social activities might take longer. I'm not sure about KTV. I don't believe it's open yet.
Yeah, cinemas are still closed. KTVs are still closed. I'm not sure about bars. Well, here in Hong Kong, our bars are closed because one of the cases spike was apparently in one of the bar streets here a couple of weeks ago. So that's not happening anytime soon. How is JD preparing for this new, more digital future of China? What are some of the things that you are doing? How are you monitoring it, and how are you really trying to shape it?
Yeah, so I think, you know, in the live streams, that's definitely been an area that we've really focused on, not just with live clubbing, but also selling fruit or vegetables from local areas through live stream, doing things like home decoration. And I think just kind of looking at where people are going to have needs and which of them can be met online. One really good example is that we opened eSpace, which is a huge mega store, 50,000 square meters in Chongqing in Southwest China. And, you know, for a short period of time, eSpace was closed. Now, of course, it is open. But what they have been doing is kind of bringing the store online. So doing regular live stream sessions about the store, different promotions, and kind of helping people understand and see products. And I think that, you know, the benefit of that is that I might not live in Chongqing. I might never set foot in eSpace, but now I actually can experience some aspect of it.
Yeah. Is this the store where you can touch and try everything?
Everything, including going go-karting in the store.
Yeah, and people absolutely love it. I've got a good friend of mine tried it already. He's been there, and he said it was absolutely phenomenal. I see that happening also again and again, that people go on these cloud tours, as you previously mentioned, museums, some destinations, and right now even shopping. Do you feel that anything shopping wise and in terms of the journey, in terms of consumer journey, has changed? The part of obvious live streaming, because right now everybody's into live streaming. You show me the platform, you show me the blogger who's not doing a live streaming right now. But do you see any changes in terms of the consumer journey that are probably here to stay as well?
In terms of the consumer journey, I think that there might be products that maybe traditionally might have been bought more offline. I think a good example is your daily grocery shopping, and that kind of went online quite quickly. So I think in that sense, definitely there's kind of been a bit of a shift. In terms of the consumer journey, I mean, for me personally as a consumer, I can't speak to every consumer, but there might be times where I wanted to go see something offline first. And so kind of really relying on whoever it is to give me a good description of what the product might be online, and kind of making that purchase online. I think that has been a change. I think one good example is, for example, a high-end TV. You might want to see that in person and see the colors and whatever. And so you really end up relying on the person who's giving you that kind of description of what it is and how it's going to work.
No, that's beautiful. Do you believe that Western brands still have a chance in China in 2020? Because basically, I think there are two lines of thoughts. One line of thought is business is bad, China is right now recovering, but essentially only the brands that are already in the market have a chance. The rest is doom and gloom, etc. And the other line of thought is great, the rest of the world is going to experience their problems, but China is the only market that is going to drive your recovery. So you need to be targeting these consumers. They are excited, they're ready to buy, they're getting back to whatever new normal this is. Which line of thought do you follow?
I think probably more of the second. I'm probably going to take more of an optimistic route. I think that, people are certainly shopping, and I think that gives brands an opportunity to look at the market. I think that, as there are new ideas being introduced, whether it's new products, we've had a series of new launches. The iPad Pro launched on JD a couple weeks ago, and a bunch of 5G phones. So we're definitely getting, a ton of, I think, interest from international brands, and I expect that, any brand would have that similar kind of opportunity.
And what kind of brands do you feel need to really consider China right now? From which categories, and especially entering China with the support of JD, so going to JD worldwide right now in 2020. So we're looking at later part of the year. Which categories still have a big chance and probably bigger demand and need to partner with JD?
Which categories? I think that in terms of the categories, I think that, especially in the US and Europe, and what I hear from the UK, friends I've talked to or contacts, that offline shopping is certainly impacted. So I think that anything kind of that relies heavily on brick and mortar has a pretty good chance in China, because before the virus, people were already quite accustomed to shopping for things like luxury online, much more, I think, so than in the US or Europe. So I think there is already a willingness to shop online here for more things than there might be elsewhere. But I'm curious to see also how that will change other places, whether it's not just China, but whether, the US and Europe will also kind of take similar kind of journeys as China.
Do you think that's where it's going?
I think you're seeing a little bit of it already in terms of activities going online, and, companies like Zoom doing very well with kind of not only business, but also personal and social. So I think you are definitely seeing that. You're also seeing similar moves, like we obviously did kind of temporary jobs and also some full-time jobs based on, impacted offline areas. So maybe restaurants, bars, etc. But I think you're also seeing that in the States. I saw Walmart, Amazon also kind of looking to fill that gap. So I think there's definitely some similarities, and it's just really exciting to watch.
So the world is going to be digitalized by COVID-19, not by tech people, not by new technology. No, it's going to be COVID-19 that digitalized us. I love it. So what is next for JD this year? What are some of the biggest initiatives, the most important things that we all need to know about what you are doing as a company, as a market leader in your segment?
I mean, just kind of around the corner, we will have our big 618 June anniversary sale.
Is it still happening? Is it still important?
It is still happening. It's a cyber holiday to begin with, so it is still happening as far as I know at the moment. But I think other things that are really important to the company are what we call environmental responsibility. So we've announced several initiatives related to carbon reduction and things like that. So I think that that's kind of one area that is of interest. And then of course, steady new product releases. And then I think another thing that's important is kind of the application of technology. So I think that, within the period of time of COVID-19, we've launched things like autonomous delivery for the necessities in Wuhan. We already had autonomous delivery testing elsewhere. We launched a couple of new drone routes during that period as well. So I think that, some of what's happened is putting some of this technology into more application scenarios. And I expect that kind of thing to continue, whether it's looking at how our supply chain platform can help other players in different industries or maybe even different regions, as well as how other sorts of technology that we're working on can empower partners. So I think that's going to be
It sounds like an exciting year, 2020 and beyond. I love it how you mentioned environment. And right now, again, a lot of companies in China are focusing on that. The government is focusing on that. And a lot of consumers also start essentially looking into this environmentally friendly and guilt-free status, even that whatever I consume is good for me, good for environment, good for society. Do you think that there will be a spike in this more conscious consumption and desire to really minimize the impact on the environment and support this whole green movement right now post-COVID-19? Because some people say yes, other people are like, yeah, no, skeptical. China is not ready for that. What's your take?
I think there's definitely potential for it here. I think that you see kind of more green options opening up, whether it's greener products coming into the market, or even for example in Beijing, there's a woman who's opened a zero waste shop that's entirely zero waste, which is quite remarkable. So I definitely think there's an appetite for it. We refer to it as responsible consumption from our side, and kind of look at it as not just the actual consumption point, but kind of the procurement ahead of time, the procurement in advance of consumption, as well as design. So kind of looking at it as a full loop. And I think that, just the more players that are involved in it, the better.
Absolutely. And the whole market changes together with it. Ella, this was phenomenal. We've learned so much about what JD is doing right now. We've learned so much about how China is recovering. What are the opportunities in the market still? Thank you so much for being with us this hour. And guys, stay tuned for more China experts to talk about China's new normal in 2020.
Thanks so much for having me, Ashley. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, wait a second.